And according to StreamYard, we are live. And so far, every time I hit live, there's like a 30-second delay until it shows up on YouTube. But I believe people can see us, or at least I believe on playback they'll be able to see this. But
yeah, though this is the same. So
there we go. Okay, all right, we're live. Hello everyone. I'm talking to disgusting leftist, far leftist Neil. No, just kidding. Neil and I talked. Was it 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, something like that. Maybe a month now.
Yeah, and we got deep into some base enlightened centrist philosophy and the Romans and Jordan Peterson being the archetypal enlightened centrists. But what's up? What are you hoping to get out of this conversation today?
Well, I think we already live in an enlightened centrist utopia right now. They're already here.
If only.
There is no like the apocalypse is coming, none of that stuff. We're already in it.
Okay, utopia is a strong word.
You know how you can be in the center of a storm and it's calm and you don't even know you're in it, but you're in it.
Is that us?
Yeah.
We're in that now? Okay. What is your... Well, did you want to show the Heraclitus stuff first?
All things take place by strife. And he shows this in like a bow and arrow and a bow, how the string is so tight because both sides are pulling at it, and it creates a perfect bow that you could use as a weapon. Or to not get into the war imagery, a more lovely image would be a lyre, which is like a harp, a smaller version of a harp, more ancient version of a harp.
Right.
And it's like the strings are pulled so tightly that you can play beautiful music on it, right? Because both sides are pulling on it, right? You need those both sides to pull on it to make this thing work. So this was the idea of strife. Strife was an ancient personification of a deity that was in his days considered to be one of the negative evil beings, strife, right? But Heraclitus said, no, strife is important. You need strife. And beyond Heraclitus, so Heraclitus that's one of his ideas. But Hegel credits Heraclitus for his dialectic form philosophy, saying that Heraclitus was the first to formulate that the absolute, the all-inclusive whole or unity that underlies everything exists in the unity of opposites. First, as this is where the being, and secondly, becoming. That's what I want to say. So, I just want to throw that out there because this is the ancient Abraham of enlightened centrism right here. Heraclitus. That should be your boy. That's the great sage of centrism right there. But yeah, so why do I think we're living in a centrist utopia right now already?
Yeah, hit me. Well, first off, utopia is a strong word. And
utopia is a strong word. You notice how people on the left, when they criticize the West, America, whatever, I'll just say the West, because Europe is kind of like part of this.
West, I think is fair.
And they criticize the West, and they'll say it's very capitalistic, and it's all run by these evil corporations, and it's all greed and money and profit. And that's how they look at it. But then you talk to people on the right, and the way they describe it is we're in this evil socialist, and they'll even point to the same corporations. The same corporations are somehow socialist now. And it's like, how are these two people seeing the same thing in the opposite way? How is that even possible? And the answer is they're both correct.
Yes.
We are in both. We are in a mixed. There's no more pure capitalism anymore. It doesn't exist. And there's no really pure communism anymore. That doesn't exist either. We're in a mixed economy, not just America, but in Europe especially, more so in Europe, actually. I think we're a little more on the capitalist side over here, but it's close. It's not too far off, especially in Canada too. That's a good example with their, universal healthcare and all that stuff, and open free markets, and you can still it's easy to open up a business in Canada. It's not that hard to do. So
are you in Canada?
No, I'm in Buffalo, which is why I'm so close to Canada.
There you go. Fair enough.
Buffalo shares Niagara Falls with Toronto, basically.
Got it.
So half of Niagara Falls is in America, half of the Niagara Falls is in Canada.
Yeah, and just to be clear, he did say Niagara, so don't censor us, YouTube.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. So all right, so there's actually this idea in economics. I went to school for economics. I'm not an expert in economics anyway. I didn't even finish my bachelor's degree, but I was going, wrote some papers, learned a few things, and this idea is that the supermarket itself is actually, and this is there's a podcast about this on Freakonomics Radio. It's really cool podcast about economics.
I like Freakonomics.
Run by Stephen Dubner. And he has a whole podcast about how the supermarket was in fact the endpoint of the U.S. government's battle for agricultural abundance against the USSR. Farm policies were built to dominate, not to nourish. And he talks about how that's still a reality today. So like aisles of fresh produce, cheap meat, sugary cereals, delicious, all these candies and stuff. This is a response to the power that the USSR had to just deploy and use its strong arm to just deploy fucking food wherever it wanted to send it. And they had it's a command economy, right?
Yeah.
You just do what they want. And they had
like China being able to just shut down cities and move supplies wherever they want.
Right. That's this is just being completely honest. That's one of the benefits of being a command economy. You can just do stuff. You just get shit done. Logistics is a lot easier in the command economy. And then Russia is such a vast area of land. They have all these resources, all this lumber, all this, and just endless supply of stuff. And so the United States needs to clap back somehow. And how do you keep your markets clean, free? How do you keep the flow of income and all that stuff and supply and demand without having to become authoritarian? And so the supermarket comes along.
Capitalism, baby. Free market.
Yep.
Decentralized intelligence.
Yeah. And if you look at like the history of like Walmarts and stuff like that, you start seeing them pop up in the early 20th century. But it's around the 70s and 80s when they start getting like help from the government, when they start getting like, extra funding, extra, all that type of stuff, where the government comes in and says, we need to set up a supermarket in every major area, every major suburb, every major city, everyone has to have access to this. And so then you start to see this idea of like these mega super Walmarts that have like arcades in them and, video games for sale, all this kind of crazy shit. And, as a result of that, you start seeing all these mom and pop places close down because they can't compete. There's no more. They're not able to drop those prices down like Walmart can. But the point I'm making is, because of this strife that we see between the West, between communism and capitalism at the time, you start seeing some new things come out of it, like the bow or the lyre, right? And so, starvation sort of goes down. That's one thing. That's one way to look at it. But that's just one of the examples of some of the things that I'm thinking about today is like, I don't know how else you can describe the world we live in other than some sort of centrist utopia of left and right pulling at each other, constantly moving things forward.
Well, we sure as fuck aren't in a utopia because the world's about to fucking
I just
collapse.
wanted to use
I'll
that
tell you
word
that.
just to make it sound more interesting.
That's fair.
Yeah, utopia is a strong word. By the way, I'm reading Thomas's More Utopia right now. Just interesting.
Thomas More. Who is Thomas More? I've heard
He's a guy who got beheaded by Henry VIII.
Nice. It's one way to go.
Because he was a Catholic humanist, and Henry VIII wanted to start a new church, so he got in his way. They were like best friends and all this stuff. But Thomas More wrote a book called Utopia, and it's basically about. I didn't finish it yet. I'm still reading. I just started actually, but it's basically about like if there was an island somewhere, what would be the best system? What's the utopia? It goes, and then that's as far as I've gotten so far.
Well, arguably, Neil, the very idea of utopia is anti-centrist because it implies, well, in my opinion, like enlightened centrism, the brand of centrism I preach, my denomination of centrism, enlightened centrism, is all about pragmatics, the practical. So if it's like a hypothetical of, well, like talking about Thomas More, it's like, okay, well, what's a perfect society on an island? I guess that has to be the ideal that you could move towards, but I don't know, because we live in history and we carry and we have to. Part of the centrism is acknowledging reality for what it is and working within that system, which is why it's like anti-revolution and all that. Although with AI and stuff, I'm really thinking we're going to need a Butlerian jihad here pretty soon. Have you seen the OpenAI stuff?
Yeah,
it's scary.
It's crazy.
When they put the AI stuff, it's called like Omni or something, whatever.
But you know who's going to benefit? You know who really is going to benefit? Like, it's going to change.
The robot dogs with flamethrowers are going to benefit because they can fucking take us out.
Content creators.
Oh yeah, I use AI. Yeah, for
shit out of it.
For a lot of the images,
and if I needed an extra voice, like I used to call up my buddy Derek and just be like, "Hey, Derek, I need you to read this little paragraph right here," because if I'm reading a long script, 2.5-hour script, and I need to do quotes, it's boring if I'm just reading all the quotes. People get sick of my voice, so I have to switch it up, do a little change up, right? But now I don't need Derek anymore. Now I can just have AI read shit out, and it doesn't sound all choppy anymore. It sounds great.
Derek's been replaced.
Yeah.
Have you been using the AI images in those long documentaries of yours?
I use Midjourney.
Okay, you do. Yeah, I use ChatGPT, DALL-E. I use DALL-E for the League of Legends icons and all that.
30 seconds. Type in the prompt. 30 seconds. You get a fucking what do you call it? What's the famous painter? Botticelli, or I don't even know if that was a painter. Yeah. But right. You get the best fucking thing you've ever seen in your life in 30 seconds. It's fucking crazy. If you would have told somebody 100 years ago this would be a possibility, they'd think you're fucking crazy. They would lock you up.
Yeah, it was. Everyone thought it would be the plumbers and whatnot who were the first ones to get taken out by AI, but they're going to be the last ones taken out. They will get taken out eventually by the robots, but it's the artists. Yeah, the creators.
Content creators are going to be the new artists.
Yeah, honestly, it's funny you said that because I was thinking about the other day when I was messing with it of like, once it gets to the point where I can feed it like an Adobe Premiere file and say add transitions or whatever and add sound effects where appropriate, then we'll be dumped and flooded with content. But anyway, back to Enlightened Centrist Utopia. I don't know, Neil. I don't believe in utopia, so I reject that premise. How does that
sound? What about the idea that I almost think this is a weird thing that I've noticed. People are more influenced politically by the things they hate than the things they support.
Yes, 100%.
So it's like
more people are voting against Trump or Biden than they are for Trump. Or Biden.
Okay. So
for sure,
this is what I'm point that I wanted to lead up to. You almost need the extremist the most. And I don't think you might agree with this at first.
No,
you need the extreme right and the extreme left to just embarrass themselves online all day, and then people in the center go, "That's stupid."
Right.
And they
you need people to establish the Overton window. You need the two poles.
That's why I watched that whatever podcast debate. So it's hilarious. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Or like Nick Fuentes, it's like, okay, even because Nick Fuentes is back on Twitter now, and even like, 4 or 5 months ago, or a couple of years ago, I remember I literally said in one video, I said cockroaches like Nick Fuentes, which is a very vitriolic thing to say.
Right.
To call another human being a cockroach. Arguably, no human being should ever be called.
I think he can handle it out of all people.
Well, yeah, but just the principle of calling another human being a cockroach, it's like that's a very And I was just saying it as like a virtue signal of like, look at the far right stuff. And so that point one, don't call people cockroaches in general. But the point about like you need people on the right every person should be able to identify someone who is far right and someone who is far left, or at least too far right for their tastes and too far left for their taste. If you can't identify someone that's too far right or too far left, then that's an indication that you have a serious problem. And like I see that on the left in particular, it's like like the super progressives of like revolution, Che Guevara type stuff. It's like, at what point is it going too far? It's like October 7th wasn't too far for a lot of them because it was like, well, it's an act of revolutionary resistance against a subtle colonial state. It's like, okay, well then you literally have there's no one to the left of you. That's insane. That means you're insane.
Yeah.
So I do agree that, like, because I call myself a cultural Christian. Aren't you a cultural Christian? Don't you consider yourself?
I get the term. I don't like using it though.
Why not?
Because
like breathing life into
I'm
Christianity.
I'm more of a on the side of Satanism. Not in like literally I believe in Satan, not because of that, but because I'm a Gnostic. I believe in the other spirit. I believe in the Gnosis.
All right, explain to me. I've heard this term and I'm vaguely familiar with it, but what is Gnosticism?
It means
fundamentally.
It means you think or you believe that salvation comes from gnosis, which is knowledge, rather than faith, which is pistis in Greek. So you believe that taking a bite from the fruit of knowledge of good and evil was the right thing to do. It saved humanity. It wasn't the downfall of humanity. It's what opened up humanity's eyes.
Okay, I fundamentally disagree with that. Disgusting.
Yeah, that's why I won't
disgusting.
That's why I won't say I'm a cultural Christian. All
right, well, hold on.
I had the satanic spirit in me.
Oh God! All right, the Luciferian intellect. All right, excellent. Okay, let's debate this then. Let me destroy you with facts and logic, or not facts and logic. Let me destroy you with faith and
look, before you say that, though, before you start, let me just premise it with this. Think about it. Every generation that goes by, we're building off of the generation before us. We're adding new pockets of knowledge to certain subjects or whatever, and we're learning more, and our knowledge bases grow. That's that consciousness of humans that animals don't have. So I believe metaphorically that the story of Adam and Eve is true, that humans did take this bite of knowledge and they became, and you can look at it as the fall, and I understand that outlook, because we're cursed with the knowledge of our own death. Animals don't have that. Animals are just in bliss all day, climbing trees and shit. They're not thinking about my uncle's going to die next week. They're not thinking about that. Humans are cursed with this knowledge, but it's also causing us to learn how to shoot rockets into space and shit. So there is a double-edged sword there with this fruit of knowledge thing. And I do see it as a salvation thing, not a curse, not a downfall. That's why I consider myself, even though I don't believe in the spiritual Gnosticism of some first century random guy, or maybe more of like a Jungian Gnostic, like how Jung would portray Gnosticism in a psychological state, right?
Yeah, but as a servant of Satan, which you've described yourself as, a bearer of the Luciferian Crusader flag, I don't believe knowledge. So, okay. Well, hold on. So does it in Gnosis? So do you believe in supernatural? Do you believe in dual worlds type?
No.
Okay. Would you say you're a materialist? Physicalist?
Yes. Like Nietzsche says. Like Nietzsche says, he points out, like, the Christians, their whole entire existence is centered around the next world. They don't care about this world, but we don't know about the next world. We only know about this world. Focus right now. Like, this is all that matters. We're in heaven. We're not waiting for heaven. We're in heaven. Make this.
I see. Well, I agree. I believe.
Yeah. So that, in a sense, that's materialism.
That's fair. And I'm not a fundamentalist, and I'm not a literalist, and I don't believe Jesus literally rose from the dead. So we're in alignment there. But I fundamentally, like, the atheist materialist view of things, to the degree that I understand it, or to the degree that we're talking about the same thing. Knowledge. Fuck knowledge. Knowledge is not what is not what allows us to dance and to love and to experience the fundaments of experience. Right? The best parts of life and reality are not knowing things, it's experiencing things. Do you agree with that?
Right. Yes, but
knowledge is a
you have
tool.
to have knowledge to get there, though.
Correct. It's a means to
even
an
have
end.
to have knowledge. This is one of the Gnostic arguments back in the early 2nd century was you need gnosis to even have faith. You need to know who Jesus was first before you can have faith in him. So gnosis is first before
That's fair, but knowledge at an end of itself. It's like this, to me, this is my next video is going to be called "Why Everyone Who Disagrees with Me is Autistic." And it is going to be a deeply intellectual, scientifically justified piece. But basically, the autistic worldview is the hyper-rational. There are only facts in the world, and it seems to ignore experience. Like obviously, knowledge is a precondition to being human, like because we're cognitive, right? So, but it's like for example, Sam Altman was on Lex Fridman, and he was talking about creating AGI. Do you think we should be creating AGI?
What's AGI?
Artificial general intelligence. Artificial general intelligence.
Oh yeah, I actually do.
That's that's Tower of Babel.
It's a very Gnostic thing to say.
Yeah, exactly. To me, that's Tower of Babel.
I say build it all. Get a virtual reality system for people who do it. I'm saying build it all.
You are Black Mirror dystopia. You are the bringer of Black Mirror.
Don't just eat the fruit. Let's start planting more trees so everyone can have the fruit.
This is the Lucifer. Yes, this is okay. I see. I now hear Lucifer speaking through you. That's going well. First of all, fortunately for you and me, it's AGI is going to kill all of us before we become gods because we cannot become gods. I don't like the idea of human beings, we're smart enough to produce what is essentially a conscious being, or has all the capabilities of a conscious being. We don't understand consciousness at all. It's a miracle, right? It's a axiomatic law of nature. It's impossible to understand, or at least so far, that's what we believe. So
very crazy, yeah.
Right. So if we are on the verge of producing something that could potentially be conscious, isn't that unbelievably fucking dangerous and arrogant?
Maybe.
All right, Lucifer.
The only thing
I'm exercising you as we speak.
Yeah, no.
The only thing though, I see the soul coming out.
The only thing though is whatever led to this state of consciousness that we exist in.
Yeah.
Seems to be obviously through natural phenomena, right? Through evolution, all that stuff, But what I don't know. I don't know what they are capable of with AI yet. I don't know how conscious, because I don't know. Maybe there's levels to consciousness that it's not just either conscious or not.
I think that's true.
Of how conscious you can actually get, which is like comparing an animal to a human.
Yes,
one's more conscious,
right? Or an ant to a plant, or an ant to a dog. It's like there's clearly a scale.
So what would be? But I guess what you're saying is once you open that door, it's just going to keep progressing.
Yeah, I mean, but here's the other problem. We don't know the implicit axioms that parameterize our intelligence. We don't know because, like for example, the fact that not every here we go. This is gonna piss you off. The fact that there are still people who do not recognize that the presuppositionalists are fundamentally correct, is an indication that I don't trust that they understand anything about morality. Right? Like you agree that you cannot be moral without some faith claim. There's no such thing as pure knowledge in terms of morality.
You have to be it has to be relative to something, yes.
And that something is God.
It can be
an idea of God. What else could it be?
It could
let's
be
go. Hold on, let's do this. Let's go straight presuppositionalism. I've been watching enough Andrew Wilson. I'm gonna presup your ass right here.
All right, let's do it.
And you're not gonna be able to get out of it. Okay.
I hate this shit, but let's do it.
Well, but because it reveals the fundamental flaw in your Luciferian worldview. How do you think that slavery is wrong?
I think that slavery is wrong.
Okay. Why do you think slavery is wrong?
Because I wouldn't want it to happen to me.
But why does that make it wrong? You would you kill someone who was trying to attack you?
Because of the knowledge I have about slavery, based on what I experience and know, is that slavery sucks because you're not free.
Right.
That's it.
But why does it? Why is it like, okay? Let's say, let's switch it around. What if I get pleasure by taking slaves? Why not do that? What is the moral argument against that? I feel good if I'm the emperor and I've enslaved everyone. This was the argument that was dominated most cultures.
This is what. Oh, this was my. When I have discussions with those guys, this is what I always say.
Yeah.
These are all situational things. So we can create a situation where slavery all of a sudden is necessary, and I would say, yeah. We can also create a situation where slavery is completely evil.
Hold on. Hold on. The entirety of human history, almost, except for the last couple hundred years, but the overwhelming majority of history, in every single culture, they took slaves.
Right.
Why was that wrong to do?
Well, I'm going to bring it back to Gnosis, because now we have the knowledge of what was really. I don't know how I can try not to be trying to contradict myself here. Okay, so
no, please. Contradictions are. I know. Contradictions are. I love contradiction. I embrace contradiction.
The knowledge of, because we have the knowledge of what happens. Like, we know what it's like when we're slaves, and we want to keep a fair, balanced approach for everybody. So slavery is wrong because slavery would suck if it happened to me.
Yeah, but what if I personally benefit from having slaves? Why am I wrong? Because
you're not the only person.
But why should I care about anyone else other than me?
You just should. You didn't ask me what I think. What you should do. You're asking me what I think. So you could go ahead. If you take your slaves to an island somewhere, and what am I going to do about it? I can go to war with you over it. If I think it's necessary, or if I think it's worth it. You know what I mean? It really comes down to the situation. Hold on. That's what the problem with the precept shit, because it's such it's so hypothetical nonsense.
Okay, but how do you? Okay, but you. This is what you. The idea that okay, let me ask you. Why do you believe that you should care about other people?
Because
what in you makes you care about other people?
Because a society that actually cares about other people is a thriving society. Is a sign of a healthy society. Even the Romans had a welfare state. Remember
that's right. Very enlightened centrist. But they also had slaves, so you could have a thriving society.
They did
with slaves.
Yeah.
Okay. So why do you care? Would you let
my answer stays the same, because I wouldn't want it to happen to me. It's the golden rule.
Because you wouldn't want.
Maybe I am a cultural Christian.
There you go.
No. Because the golden rule is actually
love your neighbor as yourself.
The golden rule predates Christianity, and it's found in the Buddhist text, and it's also found in ancient Greek text too. It's pretty universal.
Well, this is archetype.
That's why Jesus called it the golden rule, because he knew that everyone already knew this.
Yeah, and that's why I'm a cultural Christian, not a literalist Christian, because I do not believe that what we would call Christian ethics. I think historically it popped up in the places that it did, isolated from other religious systems. But I believe other religious systems can and have arrived at similar moral. Like, every religion says something like treat your family well. There's no religion that says you should kill your brother, because anyone who practiced that religion would have been weeded out. So that's a bare minimum. And then Christianity takes that to the extreme of saying, assume everyone is your brother. We are all children of God. We are all equal before God. And so that's a pro-social thing. So my cultural Christianity is I use a lot of Gnosis to justify it, no doubt. But
I think even in the Gnostic worldview, there's a lot of overlap with the Christian faith worldview.
Yeah. But the problem is
they're both heavily inspired by pre-Socratic Middle Platonist thought.
You know what I think? I think the only reason you believe that you wouldn't want bad things to happen to other people. That is not an inherent, innate part of human nature. because most of human nature is brutal killing.
But now you need
belonging to your
knowledge.
tribe.
You need knowledge to get to that state of consciousness to begin with. So my rejection to slavery comes from my gnosis.
No. Your rejection of slavery was built into you as a child because you were enculturated in a society dripping in Christian ethics. Your sense of right and wrong was not beaten.
You're saying if I grew up
as a child,
you're saying if I grew up in a Hindu system where there's a caste and all that stuff, I would be less resistant to slavery.
Your intuitions would be
that could be true.
Actually, I'm better than this person.
That could be true.
Whatever.
That could be true.
And most that's what most cultures were historically.
Yeah. So it's funny you say that because a lot of atheists and a lot of like academics who are critical of Christianity they really love to argue that Christianity is like pro-slavery. And I don't think they're correct 100% because I think Christianity does plant seeds of the type of mindset that slaves can liberate themselves with. The idea that the last is first and the first is last is a very Christian idea. But it is true, like scholars will point out, like Paul says, "Oh, slaves, be loyal to your masters," and it doesn't actually come out and say we should abolish slavery. So it is pro-slavery in the sense where it says if slavery is the thing that's going on in society, we're not going to end it. But at the same time, though, and this is where I agree with the Christians who say Christianity is, we should credit Christianity for why slavery was abolished. I agree with them too, to an extent, because a lot of the Christian philosophy is, for example, the first will be last and the last will be first. And it's a very liberating philosophy, if you think about it.
Yeah. And it was Christians who freed the slaves. It was Christians who justified. There were Bible thumpers in the South saying this is, quoting the Bible.
Yeah, true. But the only problem with that is everybody was Christian.
Well, that's a thing. So the question is, this is how I would see it. It's you have Christianity. This is the game. This is the narrative game. This is the cultural game that we're playing. Christianity. I can interpret it one way. You can interpret it the other way. You could make the case that the structure of the game is such that it gave an advantage to the Christians who were anti-slavery as opposed to pro-slavery. If you and I are playing Monopoly and I start out with $1,000 extra, or the rules are set up so that every time I pass go, I get 400, but you only get 300 or 200 or whatever the fuck it is. Then the game, we'd have to play the game for a little bit, but eventually I would win because the structure of the game favors me. And I think Christianity is sort of like that, where it's like it's a narrative, that historically, after having played out, after unfolding through time, gave a bias in favor of what we consider modern moral ethics. All of our modern moral sensibilities are very Christian-like.
But here's another. This is where this is a big thing where because people say this and I agree, but a lot of the Christian morality also comes from Middle Platonism, Stoicism, pre-Socratic,
the Logos.
Heraclitus' Logos.
Jesus is identified as the Logos.
So my thing is, let's just cut the middleman out. Let's go to the sources of all this good wisdom. Let's go to the pre-Socratics.
I agree, and we should take some fucking ergot and psychedelics out of Lucis, and that'll get us to the.
One more thing about the slavery thing, because this is like a kind of a weird topic, but they did create a slave Bible in the 19th century, believe it or not. Or 19th century, that's when slavery was big. Okay. And they edited the shit out of the Bible because they wanted to redact any verses that would give slaves the idea that they can liberate themselves. Did you know about this?
No, I did not know about that.
Look up the slave Bible.
It's propaganda. Propaganda being fed to
Google says formally titled Select Parts of the Holy Bible for use for Enro. I'm not gonna say that word in the British West India Islands. This volume was published in 1807. It contains heavily redacted version of the King James Bible. Isn't that crazy?
It's gross.
So they edited the Bible because they didn't want their slaves to.
Interesting.
But that's something about Christianity.
Exactly. That's
I'll admit that. I'll admit.
Right.
There are some things in the New Testament that do not the Old Testament though. The Old Testament is like straight up pro-slavery.
Yeah,
New Testament has some stuff that says that gives people the idea that they are they can liberate themselves and they are equal to anyone else. That is a thing in the New Testament.
Do you think that our modern Enlightenment Western morals historically emerged out of Christianity?
Say that one more time.
Do you think that our modern Western, like what we consider Western morality, individualism?
In fact,
historically it didn't?
No.
Because in the United States, what does it say? Declaration of Independence.
So once again,
all men created equal, endowed by their
creator, but it doesn't say anything about a Christian God.
Yeah, but they were all Christians, so obviously we knew what they were referring to.
Not necessarily, because I think there were more of a lot of the people who constructed this text were deists,
but Christian deists.
I don't know about that. I would push back on that a little bit. Thomas Paine. Have you ever read Thomas Paine's Age of Reason?
Thomas Paine is not important.
Listen,
Thomas Paine is not an important founding father. Okay.
Right. Okay. But then you got Thomas Jefferson, who also said famously that Americans should return back to the classics and educate themselves on ancient Greek and learn.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I heard Christianity as the way it's been described that I didn't really understand, but I understand slightly more than I did before, is it's a marriage of Athens and Jerusalem.
That's a good way to put it.
It took the Greek logos ideas, and it took the Greek Gnostic tradition and merged it with the Jewish mystical and spiritual tradition.
Yeah. Like the Philonic Judaism, the Greek Septuagint Judaism. Yeah. I would say that's factual correct.
Yeah. I don't fully understand the implications of that, but
here's the thing about that. We can get back to that if you want, but I want to talk about what you said about, are we morally Christian? And I would say yes to that between the years 500 and 1500 of the Common Era. But I would say after the fall of Constantinople, I would say the Greek East, which was still Orthodox Christian, still had a lot of its old Hellenistic flavor to it. But when Constantinople fell in 1453, what we get a lot of their scholars fleeing to the West and bringing all the classics, and all of a sudden you get the Renaissance. And by the way, and you could read Machiavelli. He talks about how all these, he talks about Platon and all the Greeks coming to the East and bringing all the Homer and Plato and all these different texts from ancient Greece and bringing it back into the forefront of the Western consciousness. And then you start seeing all these statues of Aphrodite, of paintings of the birth of Venus, paintings of Dionysus. Greek mythology is back in the Western consciousness again. And that's ultimately what the Renaissance was. So the Renaissance, which leads up to Enlightenment thinking, was a return back to, in my opinion, Athenian democratic republic ideals.
Yeah, but so this is the way that I understand it, is like Athens had the idea of democracy.
Yeah.
But they still had slaves. So the idea of democracy was,
they did have slaves for people they went to war with and beat and conquered.
Right. So the
yeah, you're right. There was a very limited democracy for
right. And so the marriage of Athens and Jerusalem is the idea of taking these democratic structures and these Gnostic conceptual structures, and then imbuing it with this Jewish spiritual tradition that everyone is a child of God. I don't believe, like the Gnostic. Who's the most famous Gnosis? Hold on. Who's the most famous Gnosis?
Famous Gnostic?
Gnostic, sorry.
I would say probably Marcion. Okay. Or if not,
did he believe in Zeus and all
Marcion,
that?
Maybe Simon Magus was.
Did he believe in Zeus and all that?
No. But Simon Magus did, in fact, use Zeus as like some sort of archetype in his writings. So Zeus was present in Simon Magus. I don't think he believed Zeus was the real god. Or
can you be a Gnostic and
believe in the Greek gods?
Yeah.
Yes. There's a lot of them that did.
How the fuck does that work?
Peratae. The Peratae believed that Jesus came to save everybody from the daemons, who are the Greek gods. So they thought of the Greek gods as evil demons. And that's
how does it? Yeah. This doesn't sound like knowledge.
Not all of them. Not all of them were evil. Some of them were. This is where the term angel comes from, by the way. Angel in Greek just means messenger. Demon doesn't mean what you think. It's not a horned little crazy goblin thing. Demon just means deity in Greek. Just means deity, but it's not. It's a lesser deity And the Middle Platonist cosmology of the time period was that there's this one demiurge creator thing. They called it the One. They didn't even name it. It's just
Demiurge.
a perfect being on top. And there's a hierarchy of beings underneath it with daemons. And so eventually the good daemons get called angels because angel means messenger. So if you're a messenger of the One, you're subordinate to God. You're an angel. If you're not subordinate, if you're not a messenger, you're just a daemon. So then you start over time. I think it's around the 3rd and 4th century. It just becomes a dichotomy at that point, angels and demons. But that's not. That's those terms are not what people think. Just angels are demons. Indeed, so they're all demons. They're all
they're all of magical or whatever.
Yeah,
spiritual significance. But again, how can you be a Gnostic and believe in the Greek gods? I thought Gnosis is knowledge, and clearly they don't exist.
Well,
Greek gods don't exist.
The way I would look at it was like not all of these educated thinkers that were in like metaphysics believe these were literally true. They believe them as like Jung would say, like these there's like archetypes, forms, or maybe in the Platonist sense.
Yeah.
So they would so the gods. So they wouldn't say like Hesiod is telling a real story about the gods. They would say, or Homer, they would say that these gods represent like natural phenomena in the world that's occurring. So they would look at these as like metaphysical concepts, right?
Yes.
Eros is desire. Eros is erotic desire. That's a metaphysical concept.
That's sort of how I see Christianity. That's my cultural Christianity.
Yeah, you like so if someone would say I was struck by Eros, they don't think a little baby with an arrow came and shot them. They just think they fell in love with somebody. That's a metaphysical concept. That's divine, right? Divinely inspiration.
Yes, that's fair.
That's how the ancients, in my estimation, that's how most of the educated ancients thought of gods. I think the lower class, lower classes, that was kind of messed up. But I think the plebs, the normals, the normies, they believe this stuff is real. But no, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, well, this is the problem. It's like take the Bible. The Bible's or whatever religious tradition, but we'll just say the Bible or the Greek gods, whatever. Very complex, very archetypal, has a very complex historical editing process, all that stuff. To take it literally, obviously it makes sense. If I'm reading the Bible and it says God created the world in 7 days. Day 1 he did this, day 2 blah blah blah. Well, okay, the easy thing is to just go, well, 7 days ago or whatever it was, 7 literal 24-hour days, God first created the fish and then he did that, and it's like that's one way to look at it. That is, you're essentially outsourcing your interpretation to whoever translated the Bible.
Right. But if you take if you take the Bible in its actual context, though, and and as soon as you figure out that the 7-day week came before the Bible was written, then all of a sudden you're like, oh,
you mean came after the Bible was written?
Yeah, the 7-day week came before the Bible was written. The Bible didn't set up a new thing where everyone says the Bible says God created the world in 7 days, so we should have 7 days in our week.
Oh, interesting.
Now the Babylonians, who were pagans and polytheistic, they already set up a 7-day week because their math system had 7 days in a week.
Yeah, I forget
they started the whole lunar solar calendar. They started all that shit.
Yeah, there's 24 hours in a day, which doesn't make sense. It's not base 10, and I forget how that we ended up getting to that. Like 60 minutes, 60 seconds, 60 minutes, 24 hours.
Babylonians, 60.
That's right. It's some non-base 10 system.
Yeah, 60 base. So that all comes from the Babylonians. The Jews who are living in Judea, which is it's in between Egypt and closer to Egypt, but it's in the same cultural hub as the Babylonians.
Sure. Okay.
They even have the same months. If you look up a Hebrew calendar, it's the same exact months as a Babylonian calendar. They adopt the calendar from the Babylonians. So when they're writing their Genesis story and they have a 7-day, God created the world, what they're doing is they're explaining why we have 7 days in a week, even though that already was established.
Interesting.
So people who say, God created the world in 7 days, it literally is true.
Right. Well,
they don't know what they're talking about.
Right. And so this is why even people who I would regard as pretty fundamentalist, or at least more fundamentalist than me, like Ben Shapiro or Matt Walsh.
Yeah, who probably actually thinks the world was created in 7 days.
No, they don't. That's what the opposite. They have the awareness to be like, I've seen Ben Shapiro say explicitly, evolution's real.
Oh, good for
and
him
all
then.
that
I
shit.
didn't know that.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by that. Although he believes Moses still part of the Red Seas, which is like, okay. Which is that's particularly interesting because he was on Joe Rogan, and Joe was like, yeah, these religions are pretty wise because, like, for example, the Jews said not to eat pork, and I think it was the Jews, Muslims, or whoever, but
Yeah.
Jews don't eat pork.
Yeah.
Because it had trichinosis. Pork had a higher probability of affecting you or whatever. And Ben Shapiro's like, I'm not a big fan of reading naturalist explanations back in the Bible. And then like 5 minutes later, they get to, so do you think Moses literally parted the Red Seas? He's like, well, if you look at secular texts, it says there was suddenly an easterly wind blowing or some shit. It's like, bro, you just read a naturalist explanation back in the Bible. So it's goofy. I guess
and circumcision is like healthier because of certain things or whatever. By the way, the Egyptians invented circumcision, and
really
another thing the Jews adopt from the Egyptians, and it was a health thing. It was the physician class that came up with this idea that if we circumcise, people will be healthier because they won't carry as. They were smart people. They knew what they were.
Interesting.
But yeah, these things become.
That's a big debate nowadays.
To do it now, right?
It's a big debate about whether or not
we should do it, right?
I'm leaning on I'm probably not going to cut the tip of my son's dick off, all things being equal.
It's proven that to be a healthier choice for.
Is it really? Yes. That's what I thought. I mean,
you can carry more diseases in there if it's not cut.
I'm one of God's chosen people, so to speak.
Same here.
In that regard, and I don't feel very resentful about it, and I don't think I have many problems. But when I've heard I don't know why some people. Obviously, if you had a botched circumcision, I'd be much more understandable. Like, yeah, I'd be fucking fit. Yeah, so
like Little Dicky the rapper. Yeah,
did he have a botched circumcision?
Yes, he talks about it all the time.
That would be bad. But I never really understood why people got so up and up. Like, because I've talked about like the trans child issue of like cutting off the breasts of young girls and shit, and they're like, well, why do you care so much about female mutilation but not? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, or they say male mutilation. What are you talking about? Like, well, circumcision. It's like those are not of the same consequence.
Those are completely different, right?
Although
one of them is purposely making so that they can't have any pleasure. The other one is like doesn't really. Yeah.
Female circumcision, like practiced in African countries. Yeah, that's just objectively fucked up to begin with. Yeah,
horrible.
I was talking about the the double mastectomies performed on children for gender purposes. 13-year-old says, and I'm very much concerned about that, given that it's complete fucking pseudoscience. We won't have to get into that. But then people were like, well, why do you care about this but not male circumcision? And I don't know why people are so particularly concerned about it. Again, if I was Little Dicky, I'd probably be more concerned about it. Anyway, all of this is to say, as a member of God's chosen people, something. Listen, I think you just need to accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior and get over it.
I think Jesus was a Gnostic.
Do you think Jesus?
You ever read the Gospel of Thomas? I do. I think he was a real person. I do.
Okay.
You ever read the Gospel of Thomas, which a lot of scholars now think is actually the oldest gospel of all?
There's no Gospel of Thomas.
Huh?
There's no Gospel of Thomas.
Yes, there is.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, John.
Oh, you really thought there was only 4 Gospels?
Of course, there's only 4 Gospels.
No, they've selected
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Selected 4 to be the canon. There's like 20 of them. There's like 20. I'm not kidding. There's a whole fucking plethora.
No.
You didn't know this? Are you being serious?
No, you are making this is.
You're joking right now, aren't you?
This is Satanism. This is Satanism, right?
No, this is serious.
Satan in the desert.
This is serious. Any Christian will admit this, that knows the Christian history. They just don't think their gospels are. They think they contradict the 4 canonical. So, and by the way, the Gnostics love John. So John is the one gospel that overlaps with the so-called Gnostic gospels with the Synoptic 3. But John got chosen as one of the canonical gospels.
Is John the one that starts off in the beginning was the Word and the Word was God? Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
John's very Gnostic.
Jesus as identified as the Logos.
His Logos incarnate, yeah. So Thomas is probably the oldest, I think, because it has it's very, very basic. It's just the sayings of Jesus. Jesus said this. Jesus said this. Jesus said this, and then it ends. There's really it's not a lot of like narrative going on, which is like very typical for like an early form gospel, right? Some people think there's another thing that it's called the Q source, which is they take the three Matthew, Luke, and Mark, and they look at what they have shared in common, and they put together a source that they all are drawing from. And a lot of it shows up in Thomas, which means Thomas might be this.
Why isn't Thomas in the New Testament?
Because I'll tell you why. In Thomas, there's some things in there that sort of contradict the status quo or the orthodoxy of Christianity, where Jesus literally tells his disciples, my inner circle gets the truth and everyone else just gets the lesser mysteries. It's very Gnostic-y, right? Saying like the secret knowledge, the secret gnosis is only for my inner circle, and no one else can know this secret knowledge. The outside, they just need to have faith. That's all that, because they're not going to understand this shit. They'll never get it. So let's just tell them just to have faith. But the inner circle, you're getting the deeper mysteries.
Interesting. Well, why is Thomas not in the Bible?
That mentality is very antithetical to orthodoxy.
What would an Eastern Orthodox priest say to you about this? If I were an Eastern Orthodox
Thomas,
yeah,
I think I've talked to some that actually like the Gospel of Thomas. They understand why it's not canonical, but they like it. They think it's a good text. Like they hate. There's other texts. One of them is called the Apocryphon of John. They hate that text, and that text, the Old Testament God's evil, is called Yel-de-Boeth, and he's this evil creator God that is going crazy. And the true creator is Sophia, and she's subordinate to Jesus and Barbello, who are in the 8th heaven. It's like so tripped out, right? They hate that gospel, and I don't blame them for that. But Thomas is really not that.
Wait, what defines a God? I thought so. The Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. That's what I learned in church camp. Okay,
yeah,
Awana.
That's what the evangelical canonical Gospels,
right? And that is what I was conditioned to know of the Gospels. So how when you say like this gospel that refers to God as an evil God and whoever, why is that even called a gospel? Like what is the definition of a gospel?
It just means good news. The good news. It's just a text about Jesus, basically. There were evangelions of Augustus. There were
what does Andrew Wilson say about this when you've confronted him with this?
I don't know. I haven't talked to Andrew about this yet.
Okay, we're gonna need to.
But you know what? You know what Andrew would say? Andrew would be.
He would say, "You disgusting, degenerate, fucking heathen."
He'd be slick about this because he would turn it on the. He would turn it on. He would turn it on to the Protestant and say, "Hey, Protestants, why don't you take Thomas seriously?" And they would say, "Because it's not part of the canon." And he would say, "Who chose your canon?" And they would go, He'd say, "Yeah, exactly. It's my church, dumbass." Right. So if I was the Orthodoxy has a point. The so-called Protestants who are just like, "Oh, we don't like you because you guys did what are the things where they sell
indulgences?"
Yeah. Oh, you don't like it because you guys did indulgences, but it's like, but everything else you just follow us for.
Yeah.
Your whole Bible was just the books that we chose. So
yeah, I'm more and more sympathetic to the idea that Protestantism is weak af.
It really is relativism at the end of the
day. But why should I defer to apostolic succession? How do I know that direct line didn't have? I mean,
that's one of the things I talk about in one of my videos where I just say, look, we don't really know. For example, Marcion. Remember I brought up Marcion? You said who was one of the famous Gnostics? Guess who Marcion's father was? And this is according to the sources that hate
Marcion Sr.
Marcion's father was a guy named Philologus, who was one of the 70 disciples of Jesus. 70? There's only 12. Well, there was 12 apostles and there were 70 disciples.
Oh, interesting.
There was the outer set. If you look at Luke, there's a passage in Luke where it says Jesus told the 70 to go and disperse the gospels out to the world. Philologus is one of those guys. Isn't that so? He met Jesus. That's Marcion's father, this Gnostic heretic that everyone says is evil, was the son of one of the people who actually met Jesus and was chosen to be one of his 70.
Interesting.
So you're like, and then here's another one, right? There's another guy named Montanus. He was a Gnostic heretic guy, right? And he baptized Tertullian, famous Saint Tertullian. They call him the father of Latin Christianity. He's a saint in the Catholic Church. Okay. He was baptized by one of these Gnostic heretics. So like once you get into the 2nd century and look at the early second century from like the year 100 to 150, and you look at what was going on during that time period, there was no Gnostic, they were all Christians together in the same church. It's not until later, it's not until like the year 200 and beyond where they start going, okay, we need to figure out what we believe in. We got to figure, all right, do we think the Trinity is good? All right, let's go with that. All right,
I don't understand. This is what Chris is bringing up.
We accept. Oh, those four are good. That's
why did we just arbitrarily why did Christians arbitrarily, it seems like, decide the Nicomedean Council or Council of Nicaea, or what is it?
Council of Nicaea,
yeah. Why did the Council of Nicaea get the final say on what the axioms of Christianity are?
Because at that point in time, Christianity was becoming an imperial religion for the Roman Empire. So they had to come up with a dogma, or else it's going to be a bunch of relative shit everywhere.
Like Protestantism.
Yeah. They needed
the original Christians were Protestant.
They needed a central, in a way, they were all opposing each other. There was a lot of debates going on between like Marcion and whoever. Marcion, and the famous debate was Marcion versus Justin Martyr. That was a famous debate. So they were all friends and they were all debating. They're all Christians together.
Yeah, but in the Council of Nicaea, how do we know that they arrived at the correct conclusions? Like, I understand the historical reference for it.
We don't. That's what I've been saying. That's what I say to Jim Bob and Andrew. I go, at the end of the day, you have to just accept, like, I appeal to authority when it comes to evolution and science and all this shit. And I admit that I don't know that stuff. I'm not experts in that stuff, and I appeal to authority. But you do the same thing. You just appeal to the church, hoping that they're right, and they have to admit it.
I'm going to message Jim, Bob, and Andrew and have them come on right now.
Have them jump on, sure. I pulled up the Gospel of Thomas. You want to see some of it?
Yeah. Yes.
All right. I'm going to see if I can, because it's kind of long. I don't want to just read the whole thing.
No, that's fair. Pull up the interesting, whatever's.
Look at the cool parts, I guess.
Look at the cool parts.
Let's see. Maybe I can do a word search for the word knowledge and see what he says about knowledge.
Why the Council of Nicaea is correct.
Here you go,
Andrew. I sent to Jim Bob.
Look at this is from the Gospel of Thomas. This might be dated to. I have it on the bottom of the screen if you pull it up.
Yep. Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
It literally says, Yeshua said, the Pharisees and the scribes have received the keys of knowledge and hidden them. They did not go within, and those who wanted to go there were prevented by them.
Wait, does Pharisee? Are they using Pharisee and the technical
that's
Pharisee term?
The Jewish Pharisee.
Yeah, but I've always heard Pharisee as negative, like Pharisee.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. He's saying the Pharisees are hiding the keys of gnosis. That's what he said right there.
What does it say? Wait, read it again.
All right. The Pharisees and the scribes have received the keys of knowledge and hidden them. They did not go within, and those who wanted to go there were prevented by them. And then
what do you interpret that to mean?
He's saying that there's secret knowledge that people don't know about. And
there's always secret knowledge. I could have told you that.
That's why. But
the homeless guy in the street could have told me that.
But that's why this text is very central to these Gnostics, because they're like, oh, look, there's that secret knowledge, whatever.
Is it Eleusis that you think they're referring to?
No. By the way, there was a group called the Nassenes, Naassenes, the Nassenes, which means in Hebrew, snake people. And they believe that Christ was the fulfillment of the Eleusinian mysteries. It's in their text. They're a bunch of pagan Christians.
Interesting. And how do you feel about them?
I like them. They're cool as hell. They were doing a bunch of crazy shit too. And in one of the texts, the Nicene preacher, he says that's what they call this guy. He's their leader. He says that Christ was the serpent in the garden. And then you know the passage in John 3:14, I think it is, where it says, just as Moses lifted up the serpent in the garden, the Son of Man must be lifted up. That's what they're talking about. You want me to pull that verse up for you?
No, I believe that.
Yeah, that's in John.
As the Son of Man.
Yeah. Look, the disciples asked him, who are you to say these things to us? Yeshua replied, do you not know from me what I say to you? Or have you become like those Judeans?
Damn.
They love the tree. They despise the fruit. If they love the fruit, they despise the tree. This is some Jesus shit right here all day, right? That's why
we know historically that those have the
it
same.
sounds like something he would say, right? Whoever blasphemes against the Father will be forgiven. What?
But
whoever blasphemes against the Son
Spirit
will be forgiven, but whoever blasphemes against the Holy Spirit will not be forgiven.
Interesting. That's Gnostic as fuck.
Fucking Gnostic as shit. Hell yeah. By the way, this is Coptic right here. But here's the thing. This text was originally written in Greek. So scholar, because they can tell by the way it's written, the words they're using, it's a bunch of Greek words in here. But this is a translation that they found in Nag Hammadi in Egypt. So this is a early first century Greek text, not early, late first century Greek text, translated into Coptic, which is Egyptian, and this is a second century translation. But yeah, this is an old
Very interesting. Hey, real quick, I just gotta do a side note here.
Yeah.
In order to fund my operations. £5. That's more than $5. Hello from an Aspie from Ireland. I believe that means Asperger's. I don't actually know that. I could be wrong. Just described yesterday. Keep up the good work, Paul. So don't forgive JJ for what he said about my country. That's all right. Ireland will rise again. How do I know this is about pagan bullshit?
What, Thomas?
Yeah. How does this?
Why would this
all misinformation?
Why would it be pagan?
Because it's not in the Bible. Look, I have the Bible.
The Bible wasn't. The Bible didn't.
I have the Bible.
You know what the oldest?
Listen, I've got the Bible.
Bible is 325 AD.
I've got the Bible on my bookshelf. Okay, it's next to it's in my fiction section, along with all the other fiction books. Okay, and I can tell you, there's no Gospel of Thomas in there.
That's true, because that's an Orthodox Christian text. Because it was put together in 325, 4th century, 400 years after 300 years after Jesus. I mean,
that's true.
Like, you got to keep that in consideration. People think such
if this is true,
hindsight shit. We're thinking all hindsight. Oh, this is the 4 Gospels because someone said so.
Okay, this is good. You have armed me. Well, you know, Neil, to bring this to my enlightened centrist politics, I'm very concerned about Christian nationalism. I don't know if you're concerned about it.
Yeah.
Oh wait, do you want to?
No, I found the text that I want, but you go ahead. I'm listening.
Okay. You are arming me with powerful weaponry.
That's what I wanted to do.
The Christian fundamentalists here.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I just hear the Christian fundamentalists say, or let's say the Eastern Orthodox fundamentalists like Andrew, and fundamentalists might be the wrong term because people have told me that's a Protestant thing. Whatever. The Christian literalists. I don't care. The people who are more on the right religiously than me. I've heard them say, well, the Eastern Orthodox Church assembled the Bible and we have 2,000 years of church history. And I just kind of take that for granted. Like, okay, I'm sure that's fine. But then to hear specifically,
yeah, when did they do that?
And what are the exact details of the criticisms of that assemblage of the Bible? Like, where's the Gospel of Thomas? Who the fuck?
By the way,
Thomas?
we know the Gospel of Thomas was central to Christians because all the church fathers in the 2nd century are citing it. They're talking about it.
Interesting. Like who? Who's a church father in the 2nd century?
Origen. Origen talks about the Gospel of Thomas. He doesn't say anything bad about it.
Origen, church father.
Look up Origen on the Gospel of Thomas.
Was the most important theologian and biblical scholar of the early Greek church. Okay.
Yeah, no,
Origen, Gospel of Thomas. Origen listed the Gospel according to Thomas as being among the heterodox apocryphal Gospels known to him.
He did reject some of it. You're right. That's true.
He condemned a book called Gospel of Thomas as heretical. What are you doing spreading misinformation?
No, that's not. Where did you see that?
Hold on. Google said that, and Google's never wrong.
Here's what it says. Origin.
Hold on.
Origin believed that the Gospel of Thomas.
We're going to clip this. I'm going to clip this and cancel you. Just
go ahead. Well, let me say this real quick. Origin believed, according to this source right here, that the Gospel of Thomas was a text that he learned should be read with caution, and that. Okay, maybe I'm wrong. I didn't know that he talked. I
don't actually know. I'm just
no. You're right. All I knew is that he talked about it. I didn't know that. I thought he said good things about it. I could be wrong.
What is he? But he says what?
All right, no, you got me there. Origin. Origin.
No. That's fair. Listen, we need powerful allies against the Christian fundamentalists, and the Gnostics will.
No, you know who told me this though? A scholar told me that Origen was saying good things about it. I got to go back to them and say, look, you just fucked me up there. You got me in trouble.
This is the problem with misinformation. Well, Google's also run by the non-Gnostics, we could say.
Here it is. I have an actual quote from Origen.
All right,
I'm going in this blind. I didn't read it yet.
That's
So
fair.
I could fuck myself up here. Ready? Stramata, book 3, chapter 92, verse 2. Origin. When Salome asked when she would know the answer to her question, the Lord replied, when you trample underfoot the integument of the shame, and when two become one, and the male is one with the female, and there is no more male and female. First, we do not find this saying in our 4 traditional gospels. Damn it. All right, you won.
Whichever scholar you talk to, you should.
I got to go find out why they said. So maybe I think what they were saying.
Look, here we go. He says, however, it's not clear that the same Gospel of Thomas as he possibly meant the infancy Gospel of Thomas.
Oh, that's right.
So he condemned a book called Gospel of Thomas as heretical.
Yeah, but that passage that I just read was probably from this Thomas, I think.
But it's not clear that it's the same Gospel of Thomas. He possibly meant the infancy Gospel of Thomas.
Yeah, the infancy Gospel of Thomas is a fucking heretical book, man. That's about Jesus murdering people and shit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that one's heretic. Yeah, that's that one. Yeah, that one. I understand that one.
All right, so maybe you're right. So you haven't been found guilty of spreading misinformation just yet. It's a hung jury right now. I'm
wrong about that. They might have viewed it as wrong in comparison to the major gospels. Okay, I got you. I concede that point, but it was in circulation. This is a fact that you could take the bank with. It was in circulation and it was being read by Christians and taken seriously.
That's fair.
Up until somewhere in between the mid-3rd and 4th century.
Have you debated Jay Dyer?
I talked to him for like 5 minutes and then he blocked me. I don't know why. He doesn't like me for some reason. And I don't know why.
Jay Dyer.
I actually like Jay Dyer.
Jay Dyer is an emotionally.
I don't know why he doesn't like me. I actually like the guy. I think he does a lot of. Dude,
I don't like the guy. I don't know him. I don't know him. I only know the character he plays online that he presents to the world. I do not respect the character he plays online. Well, he's an emotionally stunted child based on how he acts online.
I would agree with that because I don't know why he got so pissed at me.
Yeah, that's the fact that is true is so consistent with my limited understanding of his
who do the research though. He does the research.
Well, that's what I'd be curious to hear.
He knows some shit, man. That dude knows some shit.
It would be nice to hear from an actual like Eastern Orthodox person to explain these very simple questions. Why was the Council of Nicaea correct? I don't know. I know of the Council of Nicaea.
Well, because I would say if I just had to get Steelman for them, they're looking for a coherent Christianity, a coherent theology without any contradiction. And so those 4, even though there's some contradictions in them, for example, I'm going to give you a really big contradiction.
Please.
In Luke, it says he was born during the census of Quirinus. You know when that happened? 6 AD. That happened. In Matthew's gospel, it says Jesus was born during the reign of Herod, because the innocent, remember the innocents? Herod died in 4 BC. That's a 10-year gap between when Jesus was born in one gospel and Jesus was born in another gospel. What year was he born? They can't both be true. That means one of the gospels, either Luke or Matthew, is wrong, or they're both wrong. It's either one or the other. They can't. One of them. Yeah, so that's.
I really ought to start looking into these more and having these talking points prepared because
there's a lot of shit like that.
Because I believe in the basic. I have a vague, superficial understanding of the grounding of Christian ethics, like historically in the Bible and all that. I've never read the Bible in its entirety. I definitely did a lot of Bible study, in church camp type stuff. So I have a basic foundation, but not very advanced. But to hear these things pointed out, you know what? I should bring you on at the same time I bring like Andrew Wilson or someone else on at some point, and we can talk. And I will be the question asker.
I'd be down.
And it won't be a debate because I don't do debates. All right, I do discussions. I do Socratic, aggravated discussions. Okay, where I'm saying, Andrew, how do you address these contradictions in the Council of Nicaea? And I think that's how we learn and come to higher knowledge.
And then if his whole answer is because the church says so, it's a circular argument. We have to point that out.
Yeah, that's not very convincing, and I would need to then hear someone from the church defend it. But
I would say this. I would say once you get to the 2nd century, it's harder to piece together the successions that are happening. because everything begins blurry from the year 100 to 150. Everything's blurred. All the Gnostics and heretics are hanging out and dealing with the so-called proto-orthodoxy people.
Proto-orthodoxy.
That would be my criticisms to them. Like, how do you maneuver that? How do you know that the heretics weren't right and you're following?
Right. Exactly.
Here's the thing. Paul got his authority from divine revelation, from Christ appearing to him in a dream. That's what the Gnostics were claiming, that they were getting divine revelation. The Orthodoxy, their claim to fame is bishops. Bishops have the authority. You should treat bishops as God's authority on earth. That's what they said. That's what Irenaeus was saying. And Ignatius too. That was their whole thing. It was like, bishops have the power, fuck divine authority, or fuck divine revelation. And the Gnostics were saying, screw bishops. You guys are like the modern day Pharisees. It's all about divine revelation. So how do you know which one's correct? You can't. At some point you have to just pick one. And that's safer to say, pick the one that won, because
exactly.
You're going to say God chose them because
exactly. It's the problem of, it's the same problem. This is what I made a video about Christian nationalism, and it was analyzing Andrew Wilson's debate with Lauren Chen. I don't know if you know who Lauren Chen is.
She's
a Protestant cultural Christian.
I was actually watching that debate.
Yeah, it was a good debate. But it appeared Andrew won, but I in my opinion, he completely evaded the fundamental problem, which is, he says, well, how do Protestants know which interpretation is correct? Why are the Protestant churches that say Jesus was non-binary and God has multiple pronouns and all that, why are they wrong? Because they're just interpreting it themselves. It's like, fair enough. Just like you said, how do I know which ecclesiastical authority, how do I know which divine revelation is correct? It's the same fundamental problem. We gotta wrap up here soon.
Yeah.
I wanted to first give people the opportunity to ask questions. If anyone wants to ask questions, we can pull it up. First question: how does Neil ground his circuits without God?
Ground my circuits.
Yeah. How do you can't ground your morality without God. So how do you ground your electrical?
I think you can ground morality without God. You just got to ground it. Well, you can ground it in survival.
Okay, that's not very moral, but sure. Yeah.
I'm just saying you can ground it in experience. You can ground it in something that you're passionate about. I don't know.
You can't ground it in good. You can't ground good morality without God, or without God.
Sure.
I was gonna pull something up here.
That's what Gnosis is saying. You're grounding your worldview in knowledge, in things we know, things we can observe, things we.
Yeah, but
you know what I mean?
Question.
That's what it's the opposite of faith, because faith is something you can't see. You're just hoping is there. You know what I mean?
Is knowledge synonymous with logic?
No.
Okay, I agree with that. Fuck logic.
Yeah.
I don't believe in, do you believe in coherency being the primary marker of what's true? Logical coherency?
Primary marker? I think it's a marker. I don't think it's a primary marker. But I think it could be, like, in some, this is I keep going back to this, it's all situational. Back to Heraclitus again. It's situational.
Life is situational.
Everything's relative to its opposite.
We find ourselves in you know, it's interesting. I didn't even realize this. I've been so. Do you know about metaphorical cognition? Metaphor, like our language is filled with metaphors. Every word is a physical. Ultimately, breaks down into like physical embodied terms. Like, I see your point. Do you understand me? Yeah. Situation is a thing. It's how things are situated in reality. I didn't even realize that. And reality is in and of itself a situation. We find ourselves situated in this strange reality. Was Carl Jung a Gnostic?
Yeah. Yeah, he was.
Excellent.
If you read the Red Book, he says that in the Red Book.
What do you think of biblically based Jewish arguments in the Tanakh Old Testament that Jesus did not fit the description of the Messiah?
Put that back up again. Biblically based Jewish arguments in the Tanakh that Jesus. Yeah, I think they're right. I'll give you a prime example. You know how Christians love to talk about how Isaiah and Zechariah talk about he'll be pierced. He'll be pierced. Oh my God. It's such a perfect prophecy. It's all about Jesus. No, well, they wrote that about King Josiah, who died from being pierced by an arrow. There was an actual context to what that was being written about.
Interesting.
And they're reapplying it for Jesus. So all you gotta do is know, if you know understand.
Sounds
the context,
bullshit.
You actually understand the context of what the Hebrew actually means. You'll see why because if it was so obviously about Jesus, every single Jewish person would be a Christian right now, and they're not.
Right.
They're just laughing at Christians, saying,
right.
The way you guys look at Muslims, the way we look at you.
Yeah. What are your views on the different branches of Gnosticism, such as Valentinians versus Sethians?
What are your views on different branches of? So Valentinians they were very Pythagorean numerology Christian types. They came up with gematria of Jesus as 888. That's you add up all the letters of the name in Greek, you get numbers out of it. It's 888, which also coincides with the Greek alphabet has 24 letters, and it's divided up into 8, 16, 24. 8 digits of single digits, 8 with double digits, and 8 with 3 digits. So Jesus makes him the logos, the word. He's the whole alphabet rolled into one. That's their type of theology. Very interesting shit.
Very numerological.
The Sethians, on the other hand, they were the ones who came up with this evil demiurge, Yaldabaoth, the creator. The Old Testament God is evil, but Jesus was the son of a different God named Barbello. So Valentinian, Sethians, very, very different. Both heretics. By the way, Valentinus, this is going to blow your mind. Talk about how the Gnostics were blending in with the Orthodoxy, right? Ready for this? Valentinus, the creator of Valentinian Christianity, was in Rome in I think it's like 146. Don't quote me on this, but it's around there, somewhere in the 140s AD. He's in Rome and he's running for Bishop of Rome, which is what the Pope is. The Pope is the Bishop of Rome. He's running for Pontifex Maximus. He lost by like 4 votes, and to a guy named, I think is Al-Qaeda or
Al-Qaeda.
I can't remember the guy's name, but anyways, doesn't matter. He loses the papacy, right, by like 4 votes. If he would have won, Christianity as we know it might be completely different.
Yeah, it's kind of odd because it's clearly a bunch of human beings electing the next pope. So there's human error built in. Exactly. I just don't get.
And by
this is what the Eastern Orthodox would complain about.
It's after Valentinus loses that. After Pope Hyginus or Anicetus, that's the guy he lost to. Here, I'm going to pull up this Wikipedia just to show you what I'm talking about.
He lost by 4 votes.
Well, I'm just saying. I just said 4 because it was very. All we know was very slim.
Were they mail-in votes?
Probably. Sorry. He probably was like Trump at the time. Probably like, it's a rigged election. But look at this. Ready? Valentinus taught in Alexandria and went to Rome at about 136 during the pontificate of Pope Hyginus and remained there until pontificate of Anicetus, dying around 180. All right, where's the thing about his election? It's in here somewhere.
Anicetus lost Florence by 7,000 votes, which were mail-in.
Yeah, I don't know, where is it? It's got to be in here somewhere.
And then the 7th Circuit Court of Napoli said.
Oh, here it is right here. All right, Tertullian talks about this. Tertullian. Valentinus had expected to become a bishop because he was an able man, both in genius and eloquence, being indigent, however, that another obtained the dignity by reason of claim with confessorship had given. He broke with the church of the true faith. Just like those restless spirits. Oh, okay, he doesn't really talk. It's you guys can look it up for yourself. It's somewhere in the sources.
Let me ask you a question. Do you have a video?
Yeah.
That very clearly summarizes. Here are all the
everything
fundamental. No. Well, no. Is there a video that you have or something that you have that summarizes? Here are all of the criticisms against the Orthodox Christians or Catholics or whoever regarding the contradictions inherent in their Council of Nicaea, in blah, 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 all that stuff. You have one, because what would be very helpful for me, Neil, I'm not telling you what videos to make, but it would be, if you're interested in joining the fight against Christian nationalism, joining the enlightened centrist fight against the far right, it'd be very helpful to have a single video of, here's all the things that Christians don't even fucking agree about, and whatnot. Or if you have a playlist of some kind, that would be useful.
Well, I did a video. It's called "They Lied About the First 100 Years of Christianity."
Okay, so that would be a good one
It's
to
actually
watch.
it's actually the intro of my channel. If you go to my channel,
Yeah.
it's the you know that how it like promotes one video.
Yep.
It's that video. It's 2.5 hour documentary about the first 100 years of Christianity.
I'll be honest with you, Neil. I might have to smoke some weed and watch that.
Yeah, it's a long one. It's a long one.
I
the best time.
Sorry, real quick. Also, I don't smoke weed. That's illegal. I would never do anything illegal. I may smoke Delta 9, which is totally legal.
Nice. I like eating the gummies and stuff.
Yeah. Those two.
Because it's a different, it's a cleaner feel. I actually ate one before we came on here. Yeah, that's probably why I'm all fired up. Probably why I'm all fired up right now. I get like this.
That's elite. That's the plot twist at the end. And by the way, God is speaking through him right now.
Yeah.
Listen. All of my every time I take a Delta 9 gummy, I go, my next video is somewhere inside this, and then I pop it, and then something about autists being cognitive berserkers, and here we are. Okay, hold on.
So I did a whole video. I did a whole 2.5 hour documentary.
Okay, I'm gonna watch that. First 100 Years of Christianity. All right, I'm gonna prepare to destroy Andrew Wilson in a debate.
I actually sent that video to Andrew, and I said, "Look, I know I'm being a little biased here, and I'm arguing for the heretic side. I'm doing that. I admit that, but I'm doing it in a way. But I'm using the primary sources. I'm not making stuff up.
Yep.
I'm using the primary sources. I'm just giving you the other side of the debate of what the other Christians believed in, why they thought they were right. By the way, they all love Paul. So there's this misconception that Orthodoxy is Pauline Christianity because Paul, whatever. But the so-called Gnostics and heretics, they love Paul. So they're not like opposing the war. There's so much overlap between both sides. So, but there is a lot of
Hegelian dialectics. That's how we get to it.
So I talk about that, and I sent the video to Andrew when I first made it, and I said, if you know anybody like Jay or Jay Dyer, I don't know any of these Orthodox, these people who know their shit that want to like debate this video with me, I'm down. Like I'd be down.
No one's taking you up on it.
I'm going into it. I'm down. I'm going into it knowing that I could be short-sighted on some of this shit. I've only been really looking at it for a couple of years. I'm not like I haven't been doing this my whole life.
The shit's got 700,000 views in 6 months. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time on that video.
You know how I know?
I worked on that video for probably like a whole month.
Damn, but you want to know how I know it's wrong 100%?
Why?
Because Atlas VPN.
Yeah,
is absolute trash. No, I'm just kidding. I will probably watch this now to be armed against these fundamentalist nonsense fools.
Do it. You're gonna learn some shit in that video. But yeah, listen, if you can find somebody like a Jay Dyer or somebody who knows Orthodox history,
Jay Dyer, or at least the character he plays online appears to be a little bitch, especially if he's going to block you. Look, within 5 minutes of talking, I don't have any. When he debated Nick, did you ever see Jay and Nick's debate about Catholicism?
Well, I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched like.
Oh my god, they're a bunch of catty little bitches. Like
send me clips.
I know it's embarrassing. This is why I will never be
The clip that they sent me though of that debate was when Jay was pressing Nick Fuentes on eating meals, sacred meals with pagans, and I thought,
I remember that. Yep,
I thought
like the Pope like bowed.
Ready for this? Jay was wrong, and if Fuentes would have known this verse from Paul, he could have fucked him up at this. Ready for this? And we'll end on this.
That's fair.
Eating meat sacrificed to idols. 1 Corinthians 8. Here we go. Ready for this? This is Paul himself. I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
Ready?
Yep, pulling up 3, 2, 1.
So Paul says in 1 Corinthians 8, now about food sacrificed to idols, we know that we all possess knowledge. By the way, the word in Greek is gnosis. We all possess gnosis. But gnosis puffs up while love builds up. Those who think they know something do not yet know as they ought to know, but whoever loves God is known by God. So then, about eating food sacrificed to idols, we know that an idol is nothing at all in the world, and there is no God but one. For even if there are so-called gods, whether in heaven or on earth, and indeed there are many gods and many lords, yet for us there is but one God, the Father, from whom all things came, from whom we live. And there is but one Lord Jesus Christ, through whom we all things came, and we know. But not everyone possesses this gnosis. Some people are still so accustomed to idols that when they eat sacrificial food, they think of it as having been sacrificed to a god. And since therefore their conscience is weak, it is defiled. But food does not bring us near to God. We are no worse if we do not eat, and no better if we do. Okay, so what is he saying there? He says, who gives a shit? Eat the fucking food. That God has no power over you. So Nick Fuentes could have said, look, Jay, the Pope, if he wants to go to a dinner with the
Dalai Lama or whoever it is,
who gives a fuck? Paul says we can do it. He could have fucked him up with that, but he didn't. He didn't know the verse.
That's fair. Somebody send this clip, or someone who's a fan of Jay Dyer, tell Jay Dyer that I think he's a little. I don't know about Jay Dyer. I think that the character Jay Dyer plays online is a little bitch, and I would love to hear responses to these critiques.
Someone's calling me out right now saying keep reading, as if this is going to change something. It actually doesn't. Okay. I will do it just because he called me out. He says, be careful though, however, that your exercise of your rights does not become a stumbling block to the weak. For if someone with a weak conscience sees you with all your knowledge eating in an idol's temple, won't that person be emboldened to eat what is sacrificed to idols? So he's saying not everybody can do what you're doing. So this weak brother, but think about this though. He's saying the weak.
It's a gray line.
He's saying the weak Christians can't handle it. The strong Christians with gnosis, the ones that have the gnosis, by the way, this goes full circle with my whole thing of these inner circle Christians with the gnosis knew more than the outer circle with just the faith. There's deeper knowledge there, right? Paul is playing off that right now. You know what I'm saying? But you're right though. Paulo Lago, you're right. It is. He is saying to be careful when you do it.
Yeah, it's a great line. Listen, it's all situational, as you pointed out.
Situational.
Life is a situation, and we must apply. Okay, last question, then we got to wrap it up. What do you think of the Sabbatianism movement made by the lost Jewish Messiah, Sabbatai Zivai, and the prophet Nathan of Gaza in the 17th century?
Do you know about them? Do you know about this? So this guy Sabbatai Zevi thought he was the Messiah. He was very satanic too. For some, I don't know why people think that.
Antichrist.
He was a real weird guy. He thought he was the Messiah, and anyways, he ended up converting to Islam against his will. And then all his followers were like, "You're not the Messiah. The Messiah wouldn't do that. Fuck Islam." So his whole movement fell apart because he became a Muslim. But no, what do I think? I think it's a crazy story. I don't know. I'm not an expert in that area, but I know a little. I just know the basic gist of the story. It's pretty crazy shit.
That's fair. All right. Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Neil, this has been great. Thank you for popping that edible and bringing forth the spirit of Gnosis.
Let's do it again another month.
Yeah, well, I would actually because here's the thing. I don't know about Christian theology, or I don't know about the deep complexities of Christian theology any more than I do Muslim theology. So here's the real debate. This is the real debate. Here, watch this. Ready? I want everyone to clip this. Andrew Wilson and Jay Dyer and all of these Christian Orthodox apologists, all these fundamentalists, they mean absolutely nothing. They mean nothing to me until they debate Muhammad hijab. Because I'm not going to be able to sit here and say, oh, well, there are these contradictions in Council of Nicaea. Muhammad hijab and Jay Dyer, for example, what kind of conversation is that going to look like? It's going to be two egos, and they're going to say you're contradicting here, and no, you're contradicting here, and they're going to call each other fucking names. I know, it's going to be hilarious. And here's what I'll say. This is a risky bet, but I'll say this, right? If Muhammad hijab debates Jay Dyer, and one of them concedes to the other and says, "Oh my God, Islam is correct," or Muhammad hijab says, "Oh my God,
Jesus is Lord."
Yeah, I will convert to whoever concedes the debate, whoever they concede to. So if Muhammad hijab publicly concedes to Jay Dyer that Eastern Orthodoxy is correct, I will become Eastern Orthodox. And if Jay Dyer publicly concedes to Muhammad hijab that Islam is correct, I will become Muslim. I will make that promise with 99.9% sincerity. But anyway, this has been great. We will do it again. Godspeed, everyone.
Thank you.
Neil, we can chat for 2 minutes or so afterwards. But anyway, everyone else, peace.